from one Kenya Green Building Society member to Elizabeth, another. Elizabeth Chege is the chairperson for the Green Building Society and is also the CEO of WebLogic, so is suitably suited to the sustainable construction consultant space to lead the next debate. Thanks very much.
So just to start with introductions, detailed introductions about your background and the companies you work for and who you're representing today.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bruce Walker. I'm the CEO of Verde Hotels. We are a hotel management company focusing on sustainable hotels.
My name is architect Juliet Kabere from the National Construction Authority, where actually our keyword is excellence in construction. That's our motto. And basically what we do is register contractors, construction workers and site supervisors, and also register projects within the construction industry. Thank you.
My name is Raphael, Mwito. I can see one of my former colleagues is in this room and he prefers to call me a reformed architect. Yeah, John, welcome. I work with BRITAM as business development manager for their property business. So I straddle both really the development space and finance, as it were.
So under the title, how is construction paving the way for efficient properties? The title itself is kind of leading to this discussion. The first question would like to understand the latest innovations that you've actually seen in your buildings and looking at the technology through that innovation, but beyond that, operational innovation and behavioral change. Noting that we've been talking all day and yesterday that it's new, green building is taking up, it's slow, but there's a huge behavioral change discussion to be had. If we start with Bruce again.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Well, I look at it really from a hospitality perspective. We had discussions yesterday, and I've spoken to a few architects, actually Dexter there as well. And I think the discussion by Prashant Kapoor yesterday morning when he spoke about green building through EDGE, we actually spoke very much on the thought process in the design before the actual building takes place. There's all sorts of new developments, lightweight materials, solar roof tiles, and kinetic paving, etc.
Okay, if you tell us more about Verde Hotels and the certification that I think it's worth mentioning, the certifications that Verde Hotels has already.
Yes, we very much believe in these certifications. Unfortunately, we haven't dealt with EDGE yet, but we have a 6-star grading through the Green Building GBSA, which is in South Africa, and we have double platinum through LEED, and that's for new build and operation.
I mean, that's fantastic for Africa to actually have a double platinum rated building for design as well as operation. So brilliant.
It is. We're very proud of that, and we use it in our marketing process as well.
Great. Just to Architect Juliet, please tell us around the same innovation, looking at contractors and how NCA would see the change in the market as well.
Green is not new, but it is a new concept within the Kenyan industry. Simply because for us, when we look at it from the contractor perspective, the actual construction on site, I'm in charge of training. I'm the manager in charge of training of contractors, construction workers, and site supervisors. And this is one of the platforms we use for purposes of also awareness on new and emerging technologies, besides the other training on issues that are actually current within the construction industry. And we actually started a campaign on green awareness where in our programs, which we call the CPD programs, continuous professional development programs for contractors, to professionalize the industry ideally, we tried to bring in the concept of green. And it started from a very abstract concept of climate change. And I remember the first training we had on climate change, the contractors would look at us and wonder, what does this have to do with me? I'm a contractor, my work is to build, get the material, get the workers and the labor, and put up the structure. And so we realized we needed to tone it down and make it a little bit more palatable in terms of what day-to-day activities of a contractor is. And so our next training was actually on alternative materials, trying to look at what are the alternatives that you can have. And not only materials, because with materials comes construction technologies, that you can actually bring on board within construction to actually make it more sustainable and go green. And I think it has actually been having an impact. We are seeing the different changes, of course, take on together with other programs that we do. And for instance, when she talks about operational issues, I'm seeing issues of when you talk about site organization, site management, the cycling of water on a site, on a construction site, recycling of waste materials, how you dispose. Those might be small issues, but at the end of the day, the fact that the contractors and the workers on the site are beginning to take cognizance of these small measures that can go into green, then it becomes something that we can actually say is going to propagate the whole concept of green. And behavior change then begins to take place. And I think we can all agree that by the time the change in behavior, the acceptance that this is the right way to go sets in, then all these other issues then you are able to actually implement them in a more productive and sustainable way.
So Raphael, please tell us about the innovative changes that you've seen.
We've just completed perhaps what we say is the tallest building in Nairobi, BRITAM Tower. And we actually call it a proper grade A because as we went through the process of design, we started actually being very proactive in terms of what green elements we considered. For example, if you look at the building, we harvest water. Most of the rainwater, we definitely harvest that. We're doing grey water recycling, so we've a very comprehensive, large recycling plant in the basement to recycle all the grey water coming out of that building. The whole lighting system is on LED. If you go to even the faucets we have, like in the washrooms, low flow, and the whole lighting system is actually on motion sensing. It's on motion sensors, such that and the building it's on a BMS system. So we control everything. If there's a problem in any pipe within that building, from a computer, you are able to actually tell where the problem is. If it's cameras that have issues, you're able to pinpoint exactly where the problem is, and you can now deal with that problem at that point. So even in terms of motion sensing, the way it's been designed is that if a floor has a tenant, for example, and the tenant has forgotten to actually put off the light, but there is nobody in that office, then just based on the dynamics of movements and all that, can sense that there is no one in the office and can actually put off the lights. So the whole building, right from the fire strategy, we, for example, have what we call window actuators, especially on the atrium, such that if there was any smoke coming like from the parking silo, which is separate from the main tower, you find the windows will lock themselves automatically, so that there is no risk in actually getting fire, really getting, say, from the atrium into the building. So we were so deliberate in even the choice of materials that we've put in there. Green, we've gone a lot more with bamboo. If you look at the cladding, that's clay baguette. Again, still looking at cross ventilation, for example, the engineers that were involved in that ensured that we actually don't need to use artificial ACs for the building completely. So if you look at the spacing of those baguettes, for example, they're actually designed such that they're able to cut off a lot of thermal mass from getting into the building. We're using low E-glass, for example, again. So it's almost like double glazing. The first level is really that baguette. The second is the glass itself. So you get into the environment, the internal environment. It's quite pleasant to actually work in. But again, without compromising the lighting levels, you get in, because we're not cutting off light. That baguette doesn't cut off light, although it absorbs a lot of the heat, and it will cut off a lot of that thermal heat from really getting into the building. You don't compromise the internal environment. So the lighting is excellent. Even the floor to ceiling levels are quite high, probably about 3.5 meters on average. So that in itself really helps in terms of regulating that internal environment. And a few others, even the LED lighting, really in terms of operations, then we're looking at cutting the cost ultimately as the building gets into operations now.
Just listening to him talking about BRITAM, it's just right next to us at KCB Towers. And I just thought to point out he's talked about the inside of the building and a lot of that. But something I noticed also about the walkway and the driveway, the fact that there is actually a footpath for pedestrian access. I was telling, when I was coming in today, I actually walked. I said, I'm going for a green conference. Why take my car for 2 minutes? Let me walk. And then I realized I actually don't know the pedestrian access to Radisson, because every time I come, I have to drive in. So I think what BRITAM has done, it's so clear. You can actually be able to actually walk along there. And fortunately for Radisson, you really have to be a bit more creative when you're crossing the road and finding the walkway to walk to the entrance. So I think that's a plus in terms of also looking at the external space and how people actually interact with it. And just maybe a last point on innovative ways of going green. Something that we have noticed on most construction sites, and some of them are ad hoc solutions. And I want to pick out the issue of the biodigesters. They've really been coming up, and especially in residential homes. It's really, when you talk to guys, it's really not a green solution to them. It's a solution to, there's no sewer. So what do we do with, how do we discharge of our waste? But then again, this is the same it's generating the biofuel for cooking and lighting. So in a way, the fact that we begin this awareness and being able to tell people green is all about those other issues that you do and demystifying it, then they begin to appreciate it more. Because now it's an ad hoc solution to a problem. And it's very innovative, but we need to take it a step higher and see how it can be incorporated in many other, even commercial and retail establishments to take it a notch higher.
As much as we've been bashing our heads as Kenya Green Building Society back in 2011, talking about green building, luckily, we've taken advantage of the situation here to say, look, you need to do it anyway because utilities aren't there. You can see what's happening with climate change anyway. So it's that link between you're doing it anyway, it's part of the law, you have to do it, and it's green. So I do like that. What are your experiences with the rating systems? Because we talk about LEED, we talk about EDGE, there's Green Star, and a few others out there as well. Bruce, please tell us what experiences you have with that.
Well, we've, as I mentioned earlier, we've just dealt with the two, Green Building Council of South Africa and LEED. In fact, we were the prototype hotel for the Green Building Council. So we actually helped them develop a lot of their policies and so on. I think it's a very good thing. I think it's amazing the support that you can get. I think just on EDGE, going onto EDGE's website, it just helps. I think the population in general. So it's a very good thing. We do support it.
Okay, so to Juliet, tell us about NCA's experience with rating systems.
Okay. Actually, we have an MOU with NCA and KGBS, which besides awareness, we're also saying let's start at home. And what we have done in the past 1.5 years now, I think, is that we have been able to train internally capacity within the authority on Green Star rating as well as EDGE, the EDGE rating system. And of course, I can even see one of my colleagues here who's already an EDGE expert after he successfully did his exam last week, but one. So I think we are taking the whole concept of green very seriously in as much as one build the capacity before we even go outside and build the capacity of the contractors, and of course the general public as well, because as NCA currently at the moment, I know there's a lot of talk in the industry of this institution that puts the red mark, because that's what mostly we are known for a long time, the red X, which most people interpret as demolition, which in essence is not. We're just trying to say complying with basic regulations that are embodied in either the building code or the building approval process. But then again, that says, why not go a step further and say one of the ways to comply is also complying green. And now, since we have the capacity in-house, it becomes an easier job to do. I think it's just putting in the modalities and amending our regulations and being able to take on board, and maybe soon we'll be putting an X on buildings that are not green and saying,
yes,
it's time to go.
Please. No, that's fantastic from a construction authority. That would be leading for Kenya on the basis that, there's incentives to go green, and because you're aware of green building, the guys on site, the inspectors around, and by the way, we're not just talking about Nairobi. We're talking about the whole country. NCA covers the whole country. So that's a great opportunity that I'm going to follow up. So, Raphael, your experiences with the rating systems will actually add to this discussion.
As an individual, I've gone through the motions. I think initially when I was working with MML and Actis, and we going through the motions of getting Garden City certified LEED, but I've also gone through the motions of really understanding, as it were. I've been taken through EDGE. I think our project managers internally, a lot of them have gone through the training. They were involved in the training that was spearheaded by KGBS on EDGE. And we're looking at really utilizing that tool, even the EDGE tool, in some, and a lot of our projects that are in planning or even under construction currently. Even for the tower, we actually gone through the initial motions with somebody who is working with IFC and Prashant to have that certified on the EDGE tool. But Green Star as well, we're quite familiar with it, but I think Elizabeth and her team have been trying to contextualize it, to make it more applicable to Kenya. And for us, as a company, even one of the items, actually all our team members in BRITAM, and BRITAM properties are measured on as a one of the performance measures that HR will look is whether I'm actually incorporating these green tools within the buildings that we produce. We actually have to be very deliberate, and we have to demonstrate that, look, we incorporating this, and this is how it is giving us savings, either from operational side, in terms of time, even to deliver projects, and they actually will be evaluated on that at the end of the year. So it's very deliberate. As BRITAM, we've taken it at the corporate level, and it gets into our performance management system.
Wow, that's fantastic. I think it's the first we've had that throughout the conference as well, so brilliant. Just to bring on the discussion back to Nairobi, our experiences in construction, and also we'd learned something from South Africa. What needs to be done before construction? From your experience on the operating side or with NCA, where they do the inspection of the built product, what is the message we would like to give the design teams that are sitting here or the developers sitting here that they should consider at that stage before it comes to your hands? Bruce, please tell us.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Yes, going back to that, the planning is in the design is essential, and I think we need to appeal first of all to the architects out there to really put some serious thought into it, and also to put some thought into the cost savings, because we often find people not wanting to go green because of the premium price that's involved, and sometimes we find people going actually a step too far with things that you don't really need and cost the developer or the owner a lot of money, which hampers this construction. So yes, I think that needs to be thought of carefully before in the design process.
Juliet, please, especially from the contractor side, maybe you've had some complaints from them, or maybe there's something that the design development industry can learn from the contractors as well.
Okay, that's a tough one for the contractor, I must say, simply because the normal building process begins almost, and actually almost even ends with the consultants. And I know a lot has been said, and I'm an architect myself, so I know it's, the contractor relies on my drawings, my specifications, and what I'm providing for them to actually be able to work on the project. But maybe what I'm looking at it from the contractor end. Maybe the awareness at the end of the day can bring that shift where the contractor now is in the know. And maybe remember the contractor in this case when we actually register contractors as firms, where you have a technical director with the assumption that the technical director is either an architect, an engineer, a quantity surveyor, so somebody who actually should be able to have a hands-on grip on these issues. And so maybe they begin to demand the aspect of green and say, wait a minute, your specifications actually will be detrimental to the users, will be detrimental in terms of even cost to the client, the owner of the building. Is there something that can be done? Because that's what we are saying in NCA. We want to professionalize the contractor. So the playing ground is the same, that he can also make as professional decisions as the consultants are making. Yeah? So maybe that shift within the traditional setup of the construction design and construction process may actually change also the dialogue of how green we can go, or in which direction we can be able to become more sustainable within the construction industry.
What we're talking about is that upfront thinking, and most of the times the building is delivered and the consultants disappear. They'll move on to the next building. So there's no going back to learn. But the person who actually puts the building up is the contractor. So there's a lot of learning process and the link between the contractor and the design team, operational as well with the hotel. You guys see the stuff that shouldn't be there. And it costs a lot of money through the process. So maybe we'd find a way to bring that knowledge back to the design teams and actually have the full circle learning process, or have user experiences with the developers, so we understand we're building these buildings for users, basically, for people. How are they going to use them? And let's design it for that. Fantastic. Raphael, with the BRITAM Tower, I'm sure that's an experience you're going through as well?
Yeah. In the last 3 months, because that's a period that we've been actively letting the building, since the contractor added over the building in December. What you've seen is a lot of the tenants who are actually considering signing off are actually largely walk-ins. So it's people who visited the tower on their own. They've come, looked at the building, and they're like, for them it's wow, it feels different. And we've developed with the letting agents, and one of them is in this room, a very comprehensive tenant manual, even really specifying what sort of materials that as a tenant you can use in the property. So we've seen a lot of interest. It's really looking at about 34% of the space being reserved in a span of 3 months. It all speaks to actually a lot of the green elements that we've been conscious about and putting in place. Because a lot of the tenants, when we come in and they take them through what we've done, how we've saved them in terms of energy costs, so their service charge definitely is reduced. We're finding them actually participating in that dialogue a little bit better, and they are happy. They're looking at the space, they are looking at the environment, and they're like, yeah. And we're hoping that that will also change their behavior, not only within the building itself, but even outside. Because when you come and you associate with a building where you can see lights are going off and all that, you almost want to change your behavior to do that at home or elsewhere. You actually, when you're exiting the property, you want to put off the lights, or you want to really put off, to turn off the taps. To actually even influence the behavior of the users. And ultimately, it's better for everybody, it's better for the country, it's better for the world.
Fantastic. That's a really good aspect. Thanks for sharing with that. 3 months, 34%. That's very good numbers that we can share beyond the space conference. Just on the behavior element as well, I want to touch on hotels. We did have a chat yesterday that people, every time they go into hotels, they think, great, leave my manners at home. I don't need to turn lights off, throw towels on the floor. They don't do that at home. But do you see a bit of behavioral change in the green hotel that you're running?
We believe very much in rewarding our guests for making these sacrifices and not using their towels and not using their robes, not using the second set of pillows. So what we do is instead of, use a carrot as opposed to the stick, and our housekeeping staff actually give the guests a little token, a coin, which they can cash in the hotel somewhere. And we find that it works very well, and it does change people's behavior.
So we talk about efficient properties, how the construction industry is moving towards efficient properties. We have to look at the teams involved in creating these efficient properties, or just the construction sector. Do you think it's efficient with the kind of way we actually pay consultants, where they're paid a percentage of the total construction cost? I know I won't have any friends after this, but do you think it's efficient? Because you do see there's no incentive for doing this extra bit of, let me think outside the box, make the property efficient, save costs as well, because the higher the cost, the more money they receive. What are your thoughts on that? And we can also open that up to the floor.
But I think the way I understand it, architects and they get paid on a percentage of the total cost. I certainly think they should actually, perhaps the way there would also be to reward them for savings, and savings over and above the standard, I think the developer or the architect should get a bonus for that, as opposed to just getting. There has to be an incentive to save costs and to go green.
Having an architect here, please do tell us what your thoughts are on that.
That's a tricky one, yeah? But then again, we're in a dynamic, changing environment, and why not, maybe? I like what you're saying, the bonus aspect of it, because I'm looking at it from the perspective that architecture, we used to be told architecture is an art and a science. Believe it's an art that should be backed up with science. Why an art? Because you're actually trying, it's a communal thing where you're trying to address the needs of the users at the end of the day. So if you're not going to provide the best ideal spaces for the users then at the end of the day, then whatever it is that you design, then you shouldn't be paid for it, in essence. If it's not going to be comfortable, like one of our panelists said, the inside-out look. If I'm going to be uncomfortable in that space, I have to add a fan, I have to do air conditioning at the end of it, my bills are high, then that becomes maybe a reason for why then is it efficient to actually pay full fees. Maybe there should be a rationale for it. I know the green experts will go in terms of where I also want to head to, maybe a percentage fee, but then looking at it more or less in terms of what value are you adding. I think also it's also a moral conscious aspect of it, because at the end of the day, sustainability is all about trying to ensure that we do not make this a horrible place to live in, as it is becoming anyway. We are at that stage where I think we can make the difference, we can make the change. And maybe it calls for some radical issues like those which have been there since time immemorial, but they can change because the world is changing as well.
Raphael, what do you think?
Yeah, I told you at the beginning that I'm a reformed architect, so I'm a developer, and for me, anything that saves me a coin, it's hands up. So I will task my consultants, and let me report, we actually work largely with consultants who even have done green buildings across all the projects that we're working on. It's consultants who know what they are doing. It's not experimental in this case. So I'll task them. I'll tell them, if you really give me savings, we'll share those savings. But I'll make sure that I negotiate on your fees so that I can incentivize you to work harder and give me savings. Because again, if you're not able to give me savings as a consultant, there will be no motivation on your side to participate in that, in the savings. You probably want to go for your straight fees, so you're probably telling me it's a 5%, 6%. I don't want to negotiate downwards. But if I told you probably will give you 4%, but then I'll give you a portion of what you save me, you're actually a lot more incentivized. And you see how hard those consultants will work through the construction period to actually give you significant savings, because when they do their math, they realize they'll just not get their 6%, they'll probably top it up to about 8%. So for me, as a developer, it's something that I'm more than willing to get into, incentive fees.
Those are game changers for the teams. We're talking about getting efficient properties, and hopefully with these discussions, we're actually bringing it, that timeline. We keep saying 5 to 7 years, we're bringing it closer that all buildings should be efficient anyway as a starting point, and we can do more. So please give us your parting shots around this as well.
Put a lot of thought into your building before you start.
There's still a lot that needs to be done, because construction, like it was mentioned earlier, actually we had almost 66% of construction has been done. And a good indicator is that currently we have just at 11,000 buildings. Those are the ones that meet the requirements as per MCA. And this is against a backdrop of 25,000, but some of them did not meet the requirements, which means there's still so many opportunities, great opportunities in terms of buildings and construction work within infrastructure, roads, dams that is coming up, opportunities for us to go and be green and actually put in sustainable measures to be able to actually become a better construction sector.
Green was the way of our ancestors. I think that's our future. If we want to save ourselves as a race, we cannot help, but we have to rethink of what, as people, we are doing. We have to go green.
You will share with us your takeaways, but bottom line is, we're not talking about efficient properties being something nice to have. It's basically what we need from day dot. Then anything else can be more than that. And probably not get paid if we do non-efficient buildings. Why not? You wouldn't pay for something that you don't like. You wouldn't pay for food that you don't like. So I think it's putting the construction industry to task so that we become transformational, we become disruptive. I do believe there's discussions around 10% increment, 5% increment. We don't have time for that. As someone said, life is too short. We really need to get there and transform how we work to get those efficient properties. So thank you very much.
So I'll give